with the pandemic. This is a unique honor of mine to introduce Professor Nadir Arber from the Ichilov the hospital in Tel Aviv, and with him Dr. Shiran Shapira. Both are the ones that will present. I'm not a doctor. I'm not. I've nor. I don't have a medical education, so I leave the introduction of this treatment to them. I just want to say that this is part of a lot of efforts that have been done in different hospitals and centers in Israel, and hopefully they will make a change and a difference in the way the entire world deals with the pandemic. We'll have a presentation of about 20 to 30 minutes in the beginning, and afterwards we'll have some time for Q&A. We'll see how we deal with that. You can either raise your hand if your camera is on, or send us a text message through the chat. But now, without further ado, Professor Nadir Arber, the floor is yours. We are anxious to see and to hear what you have to show us.
Good afternoon, or some for you, good morning, or whatever, maybe good night. It is really a pleasure and honor to be on this floor, and especially I'm honored to be here with my head of my lab, Dr. Shiran Shapira, which helped me a lot with this endeavor. It's amazing that on one hand, we have been working on this concept and this molecule of CD24 in the last 20 years, and exosome last couple of years, but from idea when the penny fell until we gave the drug to patients, only 6 months, never described before, and we are very proud of it. So I'm going to tell you about CD24, the treatment of COVID-19 and our preliminary results. Okay. So I do not have to tell you that the COVID-19 is it's a global pandemic, and you know the numbers better than me. And it's actually two phases for this. The first phase is, it's like any influenza or viral infection that does not need any treatment, any therapy whatsoever. However, in 5, 6, 7% of the population, especially those with risk factor, but recently we see also many youngsters without risk factors. After 5 to 7 days, there is a new system that is going away. They are going outside of control. There is what we call the cytokine storm, and it's mainly in the lung. And this is exactly what our idea and our treatment should do. It's to prevent this immune system, to suppress it, to support what we call the cytokine storm. So there is many COVID-19 treatment approach, vaccine treatment, antiviral, disease treatment, but what I would like to stress, and you'll see it, so we are not really treating the viral, but what we have established is actually a platform to treat the ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, that is actually the outcome of the viral infections and the immune system in the body, and this is what cause and lead to pulmonary lung insufficiency, respiratory insufficiency, that in some cases lead to intubations, ventilations, and even death. So what is a novelty? CD24 is a target, innovative platform that is based on CD24 that is expressed on exosomes, which deliver directly to the lung. So this is a place of fire, and this we would like to calm down. And our therapy is novel. Many other drugs are, and I'm choosing my words very carefully because I do not wish that it will sound in any way bad. However, many companies trying to reuse all drugs that were used for Ebola, for SARS, etc., but we use something completely different. And the biggest advantage of our drug that it can be produced efficiently, effectively, rapidly. It's easy to produce at low cost, and supposedly, and now we have also, and I'm showing the data, no side effects. So this is CD24, and I give the floor to Shiran. She will tell you about this, and then I will tell you about the clinical data.
Okay, so our strategy is actually based on two major components, CD24 and exosomes. CD24 is actually a very small protein, a very glycosylated protein that is attached to the membrane via GPI anchor. The biological function of CD24 either achieved by interaction with other ligands or by participating in some cellular signaling pathways. Recently, CD24 was found to be an immunomodulator, biological immunomodulator. Actually, it is an innate immunomodulator for the inflammatory response of tissue injuries. The second component are the exosomes. Exosomes are actually nano-sized vesicles that are secreted for most cell types, normal and diseased. They can act in several mechanisms. They are important for intracellular communication, spread of pathogens, and presenting of antigens, and many other functional roles as well. So our strategy was to combine between these two, between the power of CD24 and the power of exosomes. And I will not get into all the details, but actually recently it has been shown that a fusion protein that composed of the extracellular domain of CD24, we can see it here, that was linked to a human immunoglobulin, it was proven as a potential immune checkpoint inhibitor with anti-inflammatory activity. Both CD24 and exosomes have been recently studied in many clinical studies, even in COVID-19. So a little bit about the mechanism of action. So actually, a pattern recognition receptors such as Toll or Toll-like receptor can interact with the DAMs. There are components that are secreted for injured cells. And we know that CD24 can interact with these DAMs. In addition, CD24 can interact with Siglec-10. And this interaction is actually negatively regulate the activity of NF-kappa B. So actually we have a dual mechanism of action. On one hand, CD24 binds the DAMPs, trapping the inflammatory stimuli to prevent their interaction with this Toll-like receptor and therefore the activation of NF-kappa B. On the other hand, CD24 interacts with Siglec-10 and this access regulates the host immune response to these tissue injuries. So both mechanisms likely act in concert to modulate the immune responses by tightly regulation of NF-kappa B pathway. I want to say a few words about the advantages of C24.
Okay, so what is the advantage? And like Shiran said, so this NF-kappa B, and you don't have to be afraid of this word, is actually the main pathways that lead to the productions of cytokine, chemokine, all these inflammatory markers. And since we can inhibit it in two key points, hence we can have a very potent and effective suppressions of the immune system. So, and this is especially, it is the overstimulations of the immune system in the COVID-19 in the lung, so that we give it directly, by inhalation, it goes directly to the lung. We can use, on one hand, low concentration, and at the same time, it should be effective and devoid of side effects. No side effects whatsoever. And then again, like I said before, it is very easy and compared to other existing solutions. Within a few months, we can supply the entire needs of the world. And more than that, this is a platform, will come at the end, that we can use this new strategy to treat many other devastated diseases. Sure.
So a little bit about our preclinical data, and I will not get into details. It's just only to show you that our exosomes indeed enrich with CD24. We can see high expression of the protein. Then morphological characteristics of the exosomes were performed by using the cryotransmission electron microscopy. Actually, this device allowed us to visualize the exosomes, their lipid bilayers, and of course, some of the vesicle internal structures. Then the exo-CD24 concentration and site distribution was measured by using the nanosite. This nanoparticle tracking analysis actually characterized these nanoparticles in solutions. Now, each particle is individually but simultaneously analyzed by direct observation and measurement of the diffusion of X. And actually, this particle by particle methodology provides the ability of high resolution particle size distribution profiles and concentration measurements. Okay, then the biological activity of C24 was evaluated in vitro, and I will do it very fast. We actually used monocytes that were differentiated into macrophages that secreted the pro-inflammatory cytokines. Then we add those dumps that I'm talking about previously, and after treating with our C24 therapeutic approach, we actually looked for pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory chemokines and cytokines levels. Then in vivo study was performed, of course, and since we aim to deliver the drug directly to the lungs and treat the patient with daily inhalation of during 5 days, the same study was performed in mice. The mice was treated daily, day after day, for 5 days, and after a week of recovery, actually we sacrificed the mice. During the entire experiment, no abnormal signs in animal appearance, behavior, food consumption, or stool. Even, of course, in the clinical findings, the chemistry, hematology, no macroscopic lesions were detected, and in the tested organs, none of them were with pathological or cytotoxic changes, of course, compared to the vehicle group. Then the efficacy was also evaluated in LPS-induced ARDS model. This model is actually the accepted model for the human acute respiratory distress order, as Nadir said before, that of course caused by the SARS-CoV-2 injection. So the mice were treated with LPS and then daily treatment with our exosomes. We took out the serum, the bronchoalveolar lavage fluid. We looked for survival and histopathology, and all of this show that our drug is very, very effective. The clinical data?
Yeah, so based on this done in vitro in a tube and for animals, we show both the safety and efficacy. So we went into clinical trial, and it actually was a phase 1B, which means that we evaluated a few concentration, a few dosage of our drug, and first in humans, so it just checked for safety. This was a primary endpoint, and I would like to thank the Ministry of Health of Israel. On one hand, they were very tough with us, and I'm happy about it, about safety, about the productions, because premium nocere, I still remember it from medical school. At the same time, they helped us to overcome all some of regulatory and other obstacles that were loosened up a little bit. So you can see my team, and exactly the design of the trial was very simple. As I mentioned, first group of 5 patients, we gave a low dose of the exosomes. We have to wait 12 days between each patient to make sure that there is no side effects whatsoever. After waiting, impatiently, we enter the second phase, in which 5 participants receive another middle dose of 5 to 10 to the 8 exosomes. Again, very safe, no side effects whatsoever. Then, since we got more confident and some negotiation with the Ministry of Health, they help us to recruit group 3 in parallel. And then we recruited 20 patients with high dose of 10 to the 9 patients in all of them. No side effects whatsoever. And then this also was pleasant to see the efficacy. And I'm stress again, efficacy can be really known only when you compare it to placebo. No doubt about, and this is our future for the next plan. However, when a patient comes to you, and this was the expression that they said after 1 to 2 days, we feel that we can breathe again. And this movement was done by most of the patients, not someone that, they could not copy it from each other. Mean that, it's, like I said, COVID-19 is not a severe disease, but when the cytokine storms, it's a very difficult one. And Shiran and myself went in the last 5 months every day to the intensive care unit in our corona department in our medical center. And it's not pleasant to see these people suffering. And then after, they're feeling like they're suffocating or drowning, and then all of a sudden that somebody can breathe, it's a big relief. So this is one of the symptoms. And I was said, oh, we remember, so asking when I came in the mornings, how do you do? He said, Nadir, you don't believe it? Today I was able to wash myself. I was able to get out of bed. So all kind of subjective symptoms, and it's again, subjective. Also, it was pleasant to see the clinical parameters, the respiratory rate, and I'm going to show the data decline and the oxygen saturation. So we were so happy. So it was already outside of the protocol. We asked the Minister of Health to help us to go even higher, 10 to the 10. This is really high dose, and it's ongoing, but we received the approval Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, we were able to find 5 participants, and today, actually, the last patient completed the study, so it's still ongoing. All of them 4 of them are already at home. The last one, which was patient is high severity, so she's feeling much better. I was a bit concerned. Always, according to Murphy law, the last patient is the most difficult one. So we continue to follow up of this patient. So they receive the drug for 5 days. It's very simple, just by inhalations. Like when I was a medical student, I give it to the emergency room to give ventilator to a patient with asthma. It's very simple. We just give the drug, we dilute it. It's 3 ml of saline, and we give it by inhalation, which lasts 3 to 4 minutes, depends on the oxygen flow, which is usually 5 liters per minute. And you do a follow-up after 7 days and 35 days. So you can see here there's some preliminary results. The average age was 58, 37 to 77. I think one of them is now already 78. A treatment of one patient was delayed. No, so actually this patient was, he was on his way home. He felt much better, but he was immune compromised, and then he was reinfected, and he's still at home. All the other patient, 34, and actually we gave outside of the protocol to another patient. All of them are at home. 33% were female, which represent the populations. And all the 25 patients were in high severity according to the World Health Organizations. No adverse effects whatsoever. Substantial improvement in saturations of oxygen, decrease in the respiratory rates, and the inflammatory markers. You can see it here, I don't go into the details, but in all of the patients, more or less, it was the same. You can see the increase in the saturation density in the blood from 90 to 95. Also, respiratory rates went down from 28 to 17. CRP levels decreasing all of the patients from a mean of 28 to, yes, from 73 to 43%. And so it's, again, it makes sense that we are not going to see side effects because it's nanotechnology. We are talking about particles that can hardly seen in electron microscopy, 10 to the minus 9th meter. It's 1 of a billion millimeters. It's very, and also we are producing in cell line that derive from embryonic cell line. So it does not express MHC1 and 2, which are all kind of components that stimulate the immune system. So they should not, and we have proved that they are not toxic, and I'm confident, and it's difficult to say from a physician that is confident about the safety profile of the drug. For the efficacy, I'm very optimistic, but as we said, and I will say it again and again, we have to be very careful, very conservative, very humble, very modest. All of us, Shiran also said, if we can find that it's unbelievable, we must keep it on a low profile and it must be compared to placebo. But the big advantage of this is actually this is a platform for many other diseases that we don't have any really therapy in the lung. ARDS with mortality that is close to 40%, and the COVID-19 is just one part of it. Other interstitial lung disease and asthma. It can also be a platform for many other systemic disease when we have overstimulations of the immune system, or diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, sepsis, you name it. There is a lot unlimited diseases that we believe that we might help, and this is nothing is more fascinating than when physicians with collaborations with scientists. So we think about a drug, we test it in vitro, we test it in animals, we give it to patients, it's safe and also has a potential to be effective, the best. So both of us are at your discretion, whatever you want, we are available anytime, all the time, at your service. And if you need it, you can have our phone, emails, we are available 24/7, because as you can see, we are very motivated and excited.
Thank you so much, Professor Arber and Dr. Shapira. It was fascinating. The amount of question we got in the chat is huge. A lot of people asked us if they can get the presentation. I know that we have contacted you. If there's a way to get at least part of it, we can send it to the participant. And also, for those of you who've asked for the recording, we will be sending all of you the recording through our embassies and consulate, the ones that invited you to the press conference. So if you don't mind, we'll start with the Q&A. As I said, the best way to do that is open your, switch on your cameras and just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Yes, Melanie? Just present yourself if you don't mind.
Of course. My name is Melanie Boylan and I'm here on behalf of Irish Tech News based in Ireland. As somebody actually already asked that question, how many people with have you done the clinical trials with? You did say 30 back in September, but what does it stand at the moment, and how many were done with pre-existing conditions as well?
So far, we recruited 35 patients. There was high severity according to World Health Organization. If you need, I can take the exact criteria. Another patient outside of the protocol. So far, 46 patients received the drug. We have completed this phase 1b/2a, and now we are waiting for the approval of the next stage, phase 2.
Please mute your computers. Sorry. Everyone mute your computer. There's someone talking while the mic is open. Go ahead, Professor. Sorry we disturbed you.
Should I repeat, or is it okay?
I think you can repeat the last sentence because we heard most of it.
Yeah, just the last sentence.
We have recruited so far 35 patients according to the protocol. We recruited another patient outside of the protocol, and now we are waiting for the approval of the Israeli Ministry of Health to go ahead and to see how we can conduct this phase 2 and phase 3. We do receive enormous amount of requests to share with us, to do this phase 2 and phase 3. And we
שמו אותך במיוט, הוא עשה מיוט לכולם.
Thank you, Melanie. So, did you hear me, or should I repeat it again? Again. Okay. So far we have recruited 35 patients according to the trial. Like we said, like I showed, it was 3 phases to it. We have completed it. We included another patient outside of the protocol. All of them are feeling good. We are waiting for the Israeli Minister of Health to go on with phase 2 and the phase 3, and we are under negotiations. We also produce the drug at the same time. We received a lot of requests from all over the globe to participate, to have this, and we are very happy because there is nothing like international multi-center study versus placebo to know the truth. I think because of the global pandemic and the rule of the world, I think we can conduct these studies effectively and efficiently, and we are always happy to collaborate and help in whatever is possible. There is nothing like having an international multi-center study versus placebo to know that what seems to make logics is in fact reality.
Thank you. Now we heard you, and we'll move to a question from, I think, Jamil. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Professor Arber, my name is Jamil. I'm a journalist from Brazil. My question is about the approval of your treatment. In Brazil, the president announced that an emergency use of the spray could be requested to the regulatory agency in Brazil in the next couple of weeks, according to him, and that a group would go to Israel basically to negotiate the cooperation. My question is, first of all, is this ready at this point to be requested already for an emergency use? Do you think it's already a point that you can go on and go ahead with an emergency use of this product? And secondly, what are at this moment the situation of negotiations with Brazil? Thank you very much, sir, and congratulations.
Thank you. So I guess that my prime minister spoke with your president, many other president and prime minister around the globe. And I think we have to different. There is difference between academia, like what we have developed a drug, and now we are surrounding ourselves with pharmaceutical specialists in order to move from the stage of development to the field of productions, which is completely different. Since we have established this technology, tech transfer is easy, especially maybe what seems to be for us difficult to spend millions shekels, dollars is big things. For governments, it's not. So once we have the approvals, I think we can move into it much faster. And like I said, if we have the facility and everything is ready, we can supply the entire needs of the world within a few months. But at the same time, you have to be very conscious and conservative and make sure that safety is a major issue. I agree with you, in time of wars, so we can lose some of the, like your president said, some of the regulatory. And this is now it says in the Talmud, from from the Israel, that כי מציון תצא תורה ותרופה מירושלים. It means that, do you understand, or maybe you'd like to try?
No, I can translate it, that the law would come out of Zion and the medicine from Jerusalem. So that's actually, I think that the word of God from Jerusalem, but the medicine is also a good example.
So we are proud to share it. We would like to share it with everyone. Like I said, it's nothing more fascinating that if we are able to help people all over the globe. I think it's a support of government with G2G, it's much easier. Safety is the most important, but again, we can, like you said, we can do some to overcome some of the regulatory. It's important. It's come from your president, my prime minister, and from the other countries, it can be helpful. And we can do it, I believe, this year.
Thank you. And there's a question from David Korn. David, please introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning. This is David Korn. I'm a pediatrician and I work in Gemelli Hospital in Rome. I was so interested in the conversation that I had to stop the car. As you can see, I'm sitting in my car, that this is not relevant for science, so I get close to the question. We know that CD24 is very relevant to turn down the cytokine storm. We know this from studying sepsis, I agree. And we know that there is a drug called CD24 constant FC, which is a monoclonal antibody that showed to reduce GVHD in post-transplant patients who were affected by leukemia. So my question to you, Professor Arber, would be how the mechanism of the drug, if you know exactly, there is a chance that we still don't know how does it work exactly, but how is it? And if you measure the down-regulation of the cytokine down the inflammatory chain after administering the drug. Thank you very much.
No, you're absolutely right. This is OncoImmune. This is a company in the US that MSD just bought for $450 million. But they are giving it via the IV route, which take a lot of, until it reaches the lung, it needs higher concentrations. It's about 1 million of what they give. Also, it's difficult to compare with exosomes and antibodies because it's milligrams and number of exosomes. And our solution going, like I said, directly to the lung, and it can be produced faster, more efficient, and cheaper. And like you said, maybe you missed, we've shown that the most important pathway to development of the cytokines of the inflammatory storm is NF-kappa B. We are able to block it in 2 places, 2 critical points. And we also were able to see in our patient dramatic decrease in all inflammatory parameters, interleukin-6, fibrinogen, ferritin, LDH, which is the lung injury, dimers, and we also saw increasing the numbers of lymphocytes, if it's the number of neutrophils, all of the things that reflect, so we saw an improvement. This is when I spoke about efficacy. And again, efficacy has to be considered with conscious because it was not compared to placebo, yet we saw improvement in all the clinical parameters significantly.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat. They say, why did you decide to test this treatment only on 35 people? How can you say it's scientifically proof with those low numbers?
I didn't say it. This is exactly what I said again and again and again. Did it because this is what the number that was approved by the Israeli Ministry of Health. We completed this stage. We are confident about the safety. Also, will continue to monitor it. We say it seems plausible, and this is exactly when you're doing phase 2A, you feel as a physician and that a drug is effective, but by no means I can say that the drug is effective based on 35 patients. There is no question about it. Not me, not Shiran, nobody has said it. Nobody had declared it. Give us a lot of hopes, gives us a lot of hopes to continue with these projects. And again, I said it, I think maybe 10, 20 times in this presentation, I have 200 witnesses. In order to make sure that the drug is effective, it has to be compared to placebo. Should I say it again?
Thank you. No, yeah, I think you said it enough.
Thank
you. And we'll move to a question from Lajla. I hope I pronounce your name right. Please present yourself and your question.
Thank you. It's Layla.
Layla, sorry, I misread it, sorry.
It's not a problem. So first, I would like to congratulate Dr. Arber and Dr. Shapira for this amazing discovery. My question, I was wondering if any countries have already shown interest in purchasing this drug after it becomes available, especially European countries, since they have since their mortality rate is much higher than in other parts.
We have been receiving requests from all over the world. It's easy to say which countries did not ask, even from Mongolia, and I don't want to offend any country, but it came from all over the world. Even some countries, it's reflect maybe the previous questions, asked me to send them the drug. I said, I cannot send it because I'm full of hopes, but I'm not confident the drug is effective. They told me, hundreds, thousands of people are dying every day. we don't care, just send us the drug, we are going to use it, we cannot do it. Until we are absolutely sure that the drug is effective, we cannot do it. So we are happy to collaborate with many countries, and it depends what they are willing. We are, Shiran and myself are answering for, trying to everyone to answer for whatever it comes, governments, agencies, private patients, and we'll explain that. It has to go to the next phase to collaborate, and it's depend of each country what they can suggest us how to improve and how to facilitate and how to come to the final answer as soon as possible.
Thank you, and we'll move to a question from Kausal. Again, sorry if I mispronounce your name. Please introduce yourself.
It's Kaushal. So, shalom everyone. I'm Kaushal Ghimire, news editor at Radio Nepal, which is a state-owned public broadcasting radio. So my question might sound naive to all of you, but my question is the drug that we're mentioning today, we're talking about today, is it a more precautionary kind of drug, precautionary kind of vaccine like the AstraZeneca or Pfizer, or is it one that is used after the infection has taken place? That is my first question. The other question is, you've also talked about the further prospect of the drug. For example, it could be used in other such illnesses such as influenza or other kind of such infections, but can it also be used, since it is related to the autoimmune system, the what you call cytokine storm, can it also be used in more severe forms of, let's say, urticaria or other kind of severe form of allergies?
Like I said, it's completely not vaccinations, and it's out of the bracket. Just to know, we strongly believe in vaccinations. Maybe we are leading. Maybe more than half of our population was vaccinated. We see that vaccines do work. We understand that it was also a kind of raw vaccination project, and I think the levels of medicine was shown in Israel because we were able to do it very fast, very efficient, including in my department, a lot of people were vaccinated, and we didn't see any side effects for this short time. So, but our drug is not associated with vaccination whatsoever. It also does not treat the virus itself. It does treat, and this is a platform like you alluded in your second question, for this acute respiratory distress syndrome, when there is overreactions of the immune system against the lung tissue itself, against the lung, and then it can be good to treat what is a worse outcome of the COVID, what kills in the COVID-19, as well as many other diseases like ARG, interstitial lung disease, asthma, and most probably for many other indications. But if you go back to the two previous questions, it must be confirmed in clinical trial. So while in the COVID-19, there is a feel of emergency worldwide, for other disease, maybe we should take more of the conservative and regular routes while making our efforts to try to find the solution for this current pandemic.
Thank you. And there is a question from Yun Xuan.
Thank you very much. My name is Yun Shen. I'm from Gulf Insider. Thank you, professors and doctor, for sharing this very interesting presentation. My question is, why has it been so difficult so far to find a drug to treat COVID-19?
Well, I guess, no, for us it was easy. Dr. Shapira was sitting in this office only 8 months ago. It was completely not in our era, but we had this penny fell and we had this idea that we can do. But I guess it's not so much, and it takes time to understand the disease, and it's still an emerging. So you said about the vaccination that there is emerging. I'm very proud of Israel, about the medicine in Israel and how we were able to vaccinate so much of the population, but there is a lot of biological force against the COVID-19. I hope it will not fight back by emerging the Israeli mutations, which is a possibility. So we still don't know. It's a new disease, and if you compare it, it's unbelievable. Within 1 year, vaccine was produced in our drug and many others. So we are living in a very interesting era in the history of mankind.
Thank you, Professor. And we'll move to a question from Dr. Andre Dascal.
Correct. Thank you very much. I'm an infectious disease person at the physician at the Jewish General Hospital in Montreal, part of McGill. And I have 3 questions for you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And I have 3 questions for you. The first question has to do with whether the data on the cohort, was it put out anywhere? Is it available to have more details in terms of the patient concomitant disease, or et cetera, et cetera? Is there any publication that's being presented? The second question has to do with concomitant treatments. Did these patients also get steroids? And the third thing, which is sort of the tachlis question, are you organizing a multinational, multi-center trial yourself to go forward? Because that would be obviously a very nice thing to join.
If you're a reviewer for the New England, they will put you as a potential reviewer. So the last patient for 35 completed his 5th day today. So we do follow up for 7 days and 35 days. When it's going to complete it, then I guess we'll be ready with submission of the manuscript. When high, we have a lot of clinical data, and I'm stressing again, there were severe patients, especially in the beginning, they had a lot of backgrounds and a lot of, because infection at that time, especially with those patients with many risk factors. The last patients were, I don't know if it's better or not, were youngsters without many risk factors, but to obesity. And this means that maybe they were younger, so they were more, they are stronger, but at the same time, maybe the disease was more severe, because why such a youngster will deteriorate it? It's not easy to see a 40 years old completely healthy, cannot speak. When you speak to him, he has a shortness of breath. So this is 1 and 2. So you can govern. Obviously, now we are launching the phase 2 and phase 3 studies. So we're negotiating with the Israeli Ministry of Health. I still have my hesitations about what will be exactly. So I think, like you said, yes, the level of medicine in Israel is very high. Every patient, obviously, we did not dare to interfere with the standard therapy. The taking care physicians gave what they think is in the best interest of the patient. So some of them received Actemra, Remdesivir, many of them received dexamethasone, all of them received Clexane, many received some even the monoclonal antibody, some serum for. We did not interfere whatsoever. If we said something, we suggested, so we held, but it was absolutely the standard of therapy to the best knowledge of the physician. And yeah, again, coming back, the way to go ahead is to have a phase 2 and phase 3. And what I think is going to be the best, and this is the way I think it is that in the future, when a patient with COVID-19 has, he knows that he's at home, and he see that saturations of oxygen is going down, and he start to breathe heavily, so then he take a nebulizer, like for asthma, like Ventolin. And if this doesn't help, you can go, so this is our device, it's very simple, like I said, we just give it here. Then you can go to the community, local community, doesn't need to go to the hospital. Then you can try to have it in local facility or HMO or whatsoever. And if he fails, then move on to hospital. So I think this is the way I see it in the future. I think it could reduce the oversaturation of the health system dramatically, and first decrease the numbers of patients who need hospitalizations, need ventilations, and also decrease the overwhelming hospitals that we have seen that they were overcrowded.
Professor, can you show us the treatment again? I think it was too low for us to see. If you just can, then just show us the device. It's a...
Yeah. So this is a drug, you see? This is a drug. Can you see? Oh.
Just to your right, yeah, thanks.
We dilute it with 3 ml of saline. Then we put it inside here, inside this, we close it. We hook it to, it does oxygens. Some, we gave can tell you why placebo is so important. Like you see, we are highly motivated, but even for us, it's difficult it will conflict. Because, overall, most of patients from the COVID-19 do improve. So one of the endpoints is early discharge from hospitals. So in order to see efficacy, you want the patient to be discharged as fast as possible. But then do you imagine what is the most important factor for early discharge? Nobody is going to guess. It is the number of patients that are hospitalized. When we were full, the patients were thrown home, the minute it could do it. But all the COVID-19 is peaks, and when there is a corona department that's quite vacant, so they stay longer. And also for us, it was Friday, and then it was debate, should the patient goes home? So if you're living in Tel Aviv near our home, it was easy, but if we have to go to Jerusalem, and Shiran myself had a lot of weekends, Shabbat, Saturdays, going to Jerusalem, but today it's going to snow also in Jerusalem, not only in Montreal, so I'm just meaning that there is so many things that can influence. So they're coming back to what I was asked. I think the ultimate phase to do, and this is why the placebo is the answer for this, is to have that our drug should be the first one to be given before it's contaminated with many other treatments. So if a patient started to deteriorate, we start to give it maybe outside of the hospital, and then to see if it can prevent hospitalization. So this is actually should be our primary endpoint. And only those who failed on our drug should receive the other drugs. So I think this is ultimate, but I still have to ask, like I say, we feel very comfortable. We had a lot of outside of a box thinkings. Shiran, not me, MD, she PhD, so she's much cleverer. So we had this, she's also a woman, so give us the biggest advantages on top of it. True. So, but now we came to the phase that we need an industrial. So we do ask a lot of people from the pharmaceutical, the drug companies, how to help us to come to that. And we do understand that at this age, maybe we are don't have that big advantage as we had before.
Thank you. And we have a question from Vera Novias.
Yes. Hello. Thank you very much. Yes, it's me. I'm Vera Novias.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm a journalist, a science journalist from Portugal. Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to ask you if you have already a schedule and a plan for the next phases, or the clinical trial phases, the phase 2 and 3, if you have any idea when can you start and where would you like to do it. Also, you were saying that countries can contact you in order to take on multi-central trials. What do they need to do to do that? How can they be engaged with you? And I also would like to ask you if you checked with your 35 patients so far, if you checked whether they had lung lesions after the treatment, because as I understood, you were saying that in your pre-trial preclinical trial, you checked the mouse and the mouse had no major lesions in their lungs. So I would like to know if you checked whether the human volunteers had some. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, Vera. Thank you.
So yeah, we said that, it depends on how much a country should willing to do. It depends on if they're willing to help to sponsor the study, how many patients they have. I guess the level of medicine in Portugal, I've been there, is outstanding. So it's, I think depends on how much governments are willing to spend. And what is so difficult for us in the academia, for governments, it should be much easier. So I think it mainly depends on the government wish of Israel, which so far, most of us were very proud to be invited to our Prime Minister. Mr. Netanyahu invited us, listened to us, and he promised to help. He was also with press conference with the Prime Minister of Greece, President of Brazil, Prime Minister of Czech Republic, and other countries. So I'm sure. And then I guess, and Shiran should know, but I guess within a month we can be ready. But again, it depends on the amount of support that we can receive.
Thank you. And we'll move to Francisco.
Yes, shalom.
Shalom, Francisco.
Shalom. This is Francisco de Guzman from DCRJ, Radio Television, Philippines. My question, first and foremost, before I do the question, I would like to congratulate both of you doctors and for Israel to do a pioneering study on this very important subject that the world is now undergoing. And what age and gender factor were included in the clinical trials, doctors?
It was the youngest was 37, the oldest was 77, now 78. 33%, 1/3 were women, 2/3 men. For example, watch the number that we expected in worldwide.
Thank you, sir. Have you received any invitation from our government, sir?
It's from the Philippines. One patient was from Philippines.
One patient from us. Oh, okay. How old was this patient?
She was 51.
51.
She's very nice.
51 years old.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Thank you very much.
And I see that Keshab is waiting a long time with his raising his hand. Keshab, are you with us?
Yeah. Thank you, doctors. You are hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you both the doctors for this good innovations at a time when the globe is going a big crisis. My query is Nepal is one of the country having a lot of respiratory problems because of our women's use smoke, old traditional kitchens where a lot of smoke. So if you see our number of female having respiratory problems is really large. In that context, I'm concerned a bit about what the cost of this. I find their equipment is very easier to use, and even our rural and faraway community they can use it. So my concern is cost. How much maybe probably cost it once it come to?
It's easy to produce. It should not be expensive. Definitely not like other treatment. It's cheap. It's easy to produce. It depends on the country. And I think in this time of pandemic, all the world should be united, and rich countries should help poor countries or less income. And if it will be in my hands, I will make sure it's going to happen. Hopefully, people hear me. I think it should be available in all countries around the world because its production is not that expensive. And like we produce it in one country in big amounts, we can prepare it for other countries to. If you produce it among you see what I mean. A global effort for all people on Earth.
Thank you. I think it's an amazing message to end our press conference today. That we are facing the same threat in the entire world, and we should fight it together. And when we have a solution, we can share it with the rest of humanity. Thank you, Professor Arber and Dr. Shapira. It was amazing. I'm very proud to be the one hosting you and showing this amazing innovation, medical innovation coming from Israel. And for the rest of you, as I said before, we will share the recording of this press conference with all of you through the embassies and consulate that invited you to this event. As I said every time, every week, this is just a temporary solution because the real treat is to come to Israel and meet the Professor Arber and the Dr. Shapira in person, and we hope that by the situation of COVID-19 will permit it very soon. So until we meet here in Jerusalem, I wish you all that you keep safe, keep healthy, and to see you again in the next press conferences that we'll have in the next few weeks. Bye-bye. Shalom from Jerusalem. Thank you very much for participating.